Hello and welcome to another edition of the Osceola's Nole Your Enemy podcast. My name is Pat Burnham and I'll be your host today. I'll be joined by Dave Lackford, a football writer for Cardinal Sports, the Rivals Louisville site. Dave will be joining me to talk about Florida State and Louisville's matchup on national television on Friday night in Louisville. Well, David, first of all, thanks for joining us. I know it's been a busy week for you guys coming back from Central Florida. Big victory for the Cards, who stand at 1-1 headed into this Friday night game with Florida State. Obviously, big game for both teams. Mike Norvell in his third year, Scott Satterfield in his fourth year at Louisville. Just kind of give me your overall thoughts on Louisville through two games compared to what your expectations were for this season before the season started.
I expected Louisville to be better. They've scored 3 offensive touchdowns so far in 2 games. One against Syracuse, a weak Syracuse team that I put a lot of money on and lost. So I didn't expect what happened up there in Syracuse. I don't think anyone did. This is a veteran team that has a lot of talent coming back at quarterback. You know, Malik Cunningham's been there forever. They've got an all-ACC lineman returning. They have some other people on the offensive line returning. Defense, a little bit of a question mark, but they were getting some leadership back at middle linebacker, cornerback. You know, they picked up a lot of players from the transfer portal, which I've learned you don't know what you're getting with those players.
That's right.
Hold off before you make any big wages there. So I didn't expect them to go up there and get trounced like they did against Syracuse. They looked unprepared. They didn't look like they belonged on the same field with Syracuse. So, you know, like we tend to do with the transitive theory, we thought, well, UCF is better than Syracuse, right? So they're going to get blown out by UCF down there in the bounce house, and such was not the case. Plumlee can't throw it into the ocean, so he looked bad. The defense, the Louisville defense, really stepped up in the second half. I think they had like 10 consecutive stops, something crazy like that.
It was nuts. I know one time it was 8 3-and-outs.
8 at one point in time, right? So I mean, but the first half, it looked like UCF was pretty much copying what Syracuse was doing. So who is Louisville? We don't know. I think we find out Friday night. It's a Jekyll and Hyde thing. Are they going to show up and look like they did against Syracuse, against an ACC team? Or are they going to show up and look inspired like they did in the second half defensively against UCF? All 3 of these teams kind of have similar quarterbacks in that they're runners.
Yep.
Sometimes they can get streaky. Schaefer, no one thought Schaefer could throw the ball. He was pretty accurate. He was doing a lot of good back shoulder stuff. Now, UCF was trying to do that too, but Plumlee couldn't throw it anywhere near that or time the ball right. A lot of errant throws. I think Travis has the ability to put more of a Schaefer effort forth than you saw from Plumlee. So that's going to be the task. You know, can Jarvis Brownlee defend the back shoulder? I'm sure Florida State fans know a lot about Jarvis Brownlee. I remember a point in time on Twitter where he was dubbed Toast Brownlee. We'll see what happens. I'm sure he's ready to play against his former team the same way that Jordan Travis is ready to play against Louisville. However, Jordan was recruited by Petrino, and
right.
Petrino's out of there. A lot of the guys that played, they're going too. So I don't know that Jordan I don't know that he has a vendetta. He didn't play last year. We'll see what it looks like out there on the field on Friday night. But I don't think that I don't think you can ascertain Louisville's true identity from these 2 games because the results are so divergent.
Right. Yeah, well, listen, I think the one thing we've learned after watching football for 2 weeks, you look at Texas A&M, Appy State, there's several others, Nebraska, Georgia Southern. You know, listen, any given thing can happen on any given Saturday. It's just not a Sunday thing. I do want to ask you about that. You know, Scott Satterfield is in his 4th year. He famously flirted with South Carolina, reached out to them. He's 19-20, going into his 3rd game of his 4th season. You have Boston College and USF coming up after Florida State, but worst case scenario looks like Louisville would be 3-2 at the end of 5 games. I don't think anybody. I mean, Boston College and South Florida are both very programs that are struggling. How big a game is this for Scott Satterfield and his tenure at Louisville?
I mean, they're not going to fire him during the season. I don't think. There's a new AD, Josh Haird. He put his vote of confidence behind him. He was an interim in the off season, and there was a lot of talk around here about firing Scott Satterfield after they got destroyed by Kentucky. Here
Yes.
in Louisville, you cannot lose to Kentucky like that, and he just keeps getting beat by Kentucky. So a lot of the fans, and there was like a little local radio show that kind of created a campaign to oust him, and much to the chagrin of those folks, the AD that they had before he stepped down, they hired Josh, and Josh put a vote of confidence behind him. I don't think they're going to oust him after 1 year, especially with the recruiting class that they have coming in. He just got to win 6 games. People tend to blow these things up. Oh, it's the game of his career. It's week 3.
No, we do have a tendency to overhype everything. You're right.
They overhype it. That's what they want to do. You know, I don't want to be a wet blanket on the hype train and diss all the people here on sports talk radio, but without drama and hyperbole, sports talk radio doesn't exist. They're sitting here doing what we're doing. So I don't know that this is a huge game. I mean, Louisville's won the last 2 games against FSU. So I'm sure FSU's coming in here looking to take them down. It's a Friday night game. Off a win for Louisville. It's going to be big. I mean, the fans are going to be mad if Louisville loses to Florida State. But it's not like they're losing to USF, right?
Yeah. Well, this will be a little.
I think it's overblown. I don't think this is some make or break. I mean, they'll be 1-2, and their schedule's not like that bad. They can still finish with 7 wins. If Satterfield finishes with 6 wins, they're going to let him bring his guys in here. They're going to be patient with him. I mean,
and that's why I preface Boston College and USF coming up next, because
they lose to Boston College and USF. You know what I mean? He might be like Scott Frost, right?
It would have to be catastrophic for this.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, I do want to ask you about Malik Cunningham. I don't know if I heard this is a league full of really good quarterbacks. I don't know how many of them are great, but we got some really good ones. I heard about as much about Malik Cunningham as I did any quarterback in the off season. He's, in my estimation, underperformed his first 2 games. He really struggled against UCF. Was very efficient actually against Syracuse, other than they didn't find many big plays in the passing game. But just your thoughts on Malik. If I'm FSU, I am loading the box and daring him to beat me throwing. He still looks tentative at times throwing the football. Am I missing something on Malik?
I mean, Malik can throw if the running game is thriving. So the way that Louisville really worked under Satterfield in the beginning, they had Javion Hawkins from Cocoa High School, and they had Tutu Atwell from Miami Northwestern, as Florida State fans will know. Yep. So Tutu took the top off, and Jayhawk was able to really establish the run because he was explosive, right? And then Malik could run, so you had a good read option thing going there. What happened was there was a kid named – so Tutu leaves, and so does Jayhawk, right? So now they have to replace them. They don't really have the home run threat at wide receiver. They have this Tavion Evans kid who transferred in from Tennessee, who they want to be able to score fast as a running back. So you stack 8, they could play action, they could do a quick hit to these fast receivers, and they could get loose, right? And they want to score fast. The problem is they haven't established a receiver because their 2 fast receivers transferred to the SEC. You got Tyler Harrell, who was in track down in Florida. He was running a 10:22 in the 100, which is Olympics. You're on path for the Olympics if you're a high school kid running anything sub 10:3 in the 100, right? And he's a kid that could take the top off. Now he's gone. He's at Alabama. Then they had Jordan Watkins, who also transferred to Ole Miss. So now they don't really have anybody that can take the top off. So perhaps you're right. They do stack the box. But I don't think Malik is a bad quarterback. I think Malik is what he is, and you have to be able to establish the run so that the safeties can creep up, and he can get the ball downfield, and he can run himself. Against Syracuse, they kind of put the cuffs on him, wanted him to throw the ball around a little bit more, and not go through his progressions and not take off quickly, right? Problem is, at one point they were playing max protect, so there was only like two things to read, 2 receivers out in the route tree at times. It was a mess. I think they fixed it.
All right, now you mentioned obviously the struggles, but the one thing that you are doing as a team is you're running the ball effectively. Now, obviously, Malik, they let him loose against UCF. He had 121 yards, leading rusher. Minus sacks, he is the leading rusher on the team with 176 yards. I'm not sure how good that is long-term for the Cardinals, but I think I think your point is well taken. Outside of Tyon Evans and your wide receiver Tyler Hudson, there really hasn't been a lot of other production out of the skill set. Is there anybody that you're expecting that could have breakout games? Obviously, Marshawn Ford's one of the best tight ends in America, but only has 50 yards receiving through 2 games. I mean, what are you are any breakout stars that you're expecting for Louisville?
I think they're feeding Evans. They're trying to get him his touches because he's the most explosive. But they have Tavion Cooley just sitting on the bench. I don't understand why he's not getting any touches. Jawar Jordan's a running back from Syracuse. He's a guy that can bust it. But at receiver, I think Amari Huggins-Bruce, he was a 3-star out of South Carolina that people had a lot of expectations for.
Now, he does have 4 catches for 99,
So yeah, I mean, he's a guy. It's just they just don't have these like 4.3 kids, right? Harold. If you put Harold on the NFL Combine right now, he's probably going to run a low 4.3. And then if you got Jordan Watkins is running like a 4.41, so you got these guys that can somewhat take the top off, and now you don't have that speed out there because they both transferred, right? So I think they're still trying to find their way in the passing, and they have no passing touchdowns this year. They're all rushing touchdowns.
Yeah.
So what are you going to do? Like you said, stack the box, right?
Yep. Well, yeah, and listen, and that was going to be my next question. Florida State, obviously, we think from based off what we've seen through 2 games and at practice, we think this is the best defensive front they've had in 5 years, at the very least. Better than the Marvin Wilson, Corey Durden years, not even close. You guys are running the ball. That's a strength right now. How do you think Louisville will try to attack Florida State on defense, given the fact that Florida State's strength is its front 7?
I think that there's no way that Louisville is going to. I mean, what are they going to do? Drop into the spread, go 5 wide, run a shit? Yeah. They're going to run the ball. They're going to do what they got to do, and if that don't work, they're going to be screwed. Honestly, because everything they do is predicated off the run. They do a lot of play action off the run, right? I guess they could go RPO or something, but they're gonna have to win at the line. And I think the line struggles sometimes at pass protection against UCF. The running backs weren't hitting the holes. There were holes there early in the game, and it just seemed like the running backs weren't hitting them. This is a veteran line. I mean, there is some younger guys on the line, but for the most part, it's a decent offensive line. I'm not saying that they're going to go out there and mow down FSU's defensive line, but there should be enough there to be efficient enough to establish the run to the extent that they can start throwing off of that. But if you got Malik Cunningham back there having to go through his reads and he's just dropping back in a normal passing set, you're going to see exactly what you saw against Syracuse.
Right. Now, just to throw some numbers at you, you can tell me whether you think Louisville has the capacity to play above this level. 122nd in the nation points per game, 110 in first downs, 100 in pass yards per game, and something like 80th in third down conversion offense. Is that reflective of what you think this team is, or you think they just have had a hard time finding a rhythm?
I think that you have it's like the NFL when you bring a bunch of free agents in. Yep. They don't have the timing. They don't really trust each other yet. They've got, you can do it in practice, right? But you have to get that through the games, right? So I don't know what Florida State's transfer portal was like and how many new guys they have at skill positions, but I mean, Louisville has 2 receivers that are transfers, right? Hudson, D. Wiggins from Miami, as you guys know, and D. Wiggins wasn't exactly, blowing the doors off of anybody at Miami other than the time he caught a bunch of touchdowns against Louisville, right?
Right.
So you got 2 transfer receivers that are starting for Louisville. And then you have a running back, Tyon Evans, who is from Tennessee. He's a transfer in there, right? So I think they're still finding their identity. It's too early to say what they are. These aren't the players they recruited from high school. Tyler Harrell is down in Alabama right now. And Jordan Watkins is at Ole Miss, and both of them aren't putting up the numbers they would at Louisville. So be careful when you enter that transfer portal.
Oh, there's no doubt. It gives and it takes. You're right about that.
Hey, sometimes you got to water your own grass,
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Well, it sounds like what you're saying is they got more ability than what they've lived up to, and I do believe that's probably the case. I think Scott Satterfield is a great X's and O's coach, and I think he'll get some of their issues.
I mean, they're going to be fired up Friday. That team's going to go out there and play hard.
Yeah,
no doubt about it.
They got Florida State showing up in their icy whites, so we'll see.
Yeah, the icy whites. I hate uniform hype, man.
I do too.
Bears, man.
Florida State should never wear a uniform that does not include a gold helmet. That's just
Right. Yeah, I'm with you with that,
it's
man.
sacrilegious. All right. Well, quickly, I just want to move to the other side of the ball because really, I don't think anybody knows what to expect from your defense there. Let's take a look at the UCF game by itself. 241 yards given up in the first half, only 96. And as you said, at one time they had forced about 8 to 9 3-and-outs by UCF. On average, and it's only a 2-game sample size, but 207 yards per game given up on the ground. But they seem like they're doing all right against the pass. They're not Chicago Bears 46 defense shutting people down against the pass, but their people are not as successful throwing the ball. And one of the reasons may be that they face Schrader and Rice Plumlee. I mean, right. Not great throwers. But what do you expect? Which of the two defenses, was it the first half UCF defense is more who Louisville's like, or that second half defense?
I think you got 3 quarters where they look bad, and they got 1 quarter where they look good. They got 3 halves where they look good and 1 half where they didn't, right?
Yeah.
So, but here's our problem. Against Syracuse, Schaefer was making some very timely throws when they needed them, right? They'd get 3rd and long, and Schaefer would make a ridiculous back shoulder throw. They put it right on the money. And that's not characteristic of what we've seen from him in the past. So, I think what you're going to see is this. Louisville's going to have to be able to stop the run and make Jordan Travis throw. And then does Jordan Travis make the big plays? I saw plays against UCF where receivers were open. Their quarterback just can't throw. So I think you haven't seen them play a prolific passer yet. I would not call Jordan Travis a prolific passer by any stretch of the imagination. I don't think anybody in Florida State with the realistic eye for football will say that either, right? No. So it's all going to come down to, does Jordan Travis hit those timing routes, those slant routes? Can he see the middle of the field and be accurate and time them perfectly like he did against LSU? If so, Louisville's going to be in trouble. Also, Louisville's defense struggled to stop Schaefer because they didn't maintain lane discipline, and there was no one in the middle of the field. So Schaefer's back foot hits the ground, a hole opens, there's no one there, he's gone. He doesn't see any color in the middle of the field, he's taken off, right? So Louisville has to watch what they did wrong in the first 2 games and course correct. And then the players got to execute. You can blame the coaches all you want, but if the coaches put in a game plan and the players don't execute, that's on the players, right? So it comes down to this. Are they going to protect the middle of the field in the pass and when the quarterback drops off? Because Travis is going to run if he sees green and there's no color there. He's taking off, right? And how well is Travis going to play? If he's going to be hitting those back shoulder passes like Schaefer was on 3rd and 15, 3rd and 20, it's hard to ever stop that, right?
Yep.
So I think it's going to be a good game. What's the spread right now?
Last time I heard it was 2 Florida State. Florida State was a 2-point favorite.
Florida State's 2. So
it was.
See, that's tough. I hate that.
yeah. Don't bet on this.
I hate that. Yeah, I'm staying away from that one. I don't like it. Now, if they were giving if they give Louisville 4, I'll take Louisville.
Okay. All right. Well, so now let me ask you, just straight up, who you think is going to win the ball game?
Straight, man. I don't know, man. I'm not impressed with LSU, honestly. And they should have. They could have tied it up. That dude doesn't muff 2 punts.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, amazingly enough, Florida State did not make any points off those 2 muff punts. They fumbled the ball in the end zone.
Exactly.
Yeah. So
I think Louisville needs this more than Florida State, and it's a home game. The problem is this: Louisville just played on Friday. Florida State's been off for a week.
Yep.
And so, it's Saturday, Friday. It kind of, I don't know, man. Gun to my head, I'll just say Louisville because I work for Louisville.
Yeah. Hey, nothing wrong with that. All right. So let me ask you this: there's going to be a large contingent of Florida State people coming in town. I will be there early on Thursday morning. Where do people want to go in Louisville on Thursday and Friday night?
Thursday and Friday night.
Restaurants, bars.
I live in Nole. All right. So Nulu is a nice part of town with a bunch of little bars and stuff like that to go to. It's the schwankier part of town. It's a little pricey, but it's nice. There's a lot of places you can go. It's on Market Street. So go out to Nulu. The AC Hotel is out there. There's a little dive bar called Taj. That's really fun. On Thursday night, they got karaoke. That's good. There's a place called Galaxy. That's another nice place to go. There's a lot of fun stuff to do. There's a bar called High Horse. Everything's in Nulu, or you want to go down to Bardstown Road and Baxter Ave. There's a lot of bars out there, stuff to do around that way. If you want to go for like if the upscale stuff, you're going to go downtown. You're going to go to Jack Ruby's. That's the big steakhouse where the coaching staff takes all the recruits and the families on the official visits when they're allowed to feed them. So that's Jeff Ruby's is where you want to go if you want a good steak. It's the best out here. Yeah, I mean, there's 4th Street Live. That's fun. The locals don't like 4th Street Live, but if you're coming in from out of town, it's a good time. So those are the places you want to go.
All right. Well, David, man, I appreciate it. I know you're a busy man, but we just wanted to get your take on Louisville 2022 and what your expectations were coming into the Florida State game. And thank you for your time.
All right. Thanks, brother. Take care.
All right, Dave. Thank you.
All right.